Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Devonna.
Hi, I'm Shanice.
And we are 90 Day Sisters. So usually we have a season going and we do episodes and whatnot. Now, this is going to be like, on TV when they do like those special episodes or special features. So this is going to be like a special episode feature, whatever. We're not going to give it a number because we just felt that with what is going on in America, we wanted to speak on it as well as speak on how that affects our relationships, or if it does. So if you haven't heard, and hopefully you have, if you follow me or Shanice, but especially me, I've been blowing it up, you know what is going on and how we feel about it. There has been a lot of police brutality and lynching of people of color here in the United States. Most recently, George Floyd, who was arrested for a nonviolent offense and was not a resisting arrest, and there was a police officer who was not of color who I haven't heard yet. I don't know if he ever will speak on it or if he'll get an opportunity. I'm not sure, but who, for whatever reason, had his knee in this man's neck, and this gentleman eventually ended up passing. Now we've watched the news and stuff like that, and I will wait for what happens officially with all of this, but based on what I've heard so far as medical reporting and what's happening with, legal action, I'm not yet satisfied. By any means am I not yet satisfied. So hopefully things will eventually be done right and with justice. But at this point, I don't know if I have much hope for it. That's not the reality of the America that I have lived in so far, or that I've read about in our history books. So, as you know, we are both engaged to individuals from outside of the country. Shanice's fiance is from the Dominican Republic. Mine is from Jamaica. My fiance is a strongly melanated man who you will not mistake for any other color. And I think it is a beautiful thing. Shanice's fiance is from the Dominican Republic, but he is Afro-Latina, which has its own issues within, his community and his country. But talk a little bit, Shanice, because she's doing the K-1 visa. If you haven't been following along, please watch our other videos. But she's doing the K-1 visa, and her fiance is supposed to be coming to the U.S. prayerfully when their application is approved. And I just want you to say, as you're filling out this application, thinking about sending this off and what it means as far as you being reunited, but not just reunited, but reunited in America with this racial climate. Just talk about it.
It's really difficult. We are going to be I will be sending off the application tomorrow. So it's going to be official. Prayerfully, he will be coming here soon. It's really scary. This is something I guess I've always had to deal with, being a black person in America. But I think it's just a little bit different for him just because he doesn't have to necessarily deal with the racism that we deal with in America. Clearly, there's racism everywhere. He does have to deal with it in the Dominican Republic. But I feel like he'll be, double whammied with this because he's black, but then he also has the Afro-Latina part, which I feel like that has a little bit in America as well. So it's just kind of very scary just knowing that I can't even protect him when it comes to this because I can also be a victim to this. And also him just not, I guess, I don't want to say he doesn't have the experience, but because he has been to America, but I think he was here in college, and I think there's a different kind of,
There's a different generation of young people in college.
Yes. Versus he's going to be here in the working America, corporate America, which can be cutthroat. So it's very scary knowing that this is something that we're going to have to deal with. And I am bringing him here, and it's something that I can't necessarily take away for him or help him on it, if that makes sense. So sometimes I'm like, is it even worth it, us both being here? Because clearly we want to have kids. If we have a son, we have a daughter, they're going to be black. So I also have to deal with worrying about them as well as not just me and him. So it's very hard to deal with. And sometimes I am like, I'm not sure if this is something that I want to have him come into. But yeah, it's very hard. Very, very hard.
You know, something that I was thinking about regarding you and your fiance is also not only is he, so he's Afro-Latina, right? So he looks more black than maybe you might picture when you hear Dominican, or, you know, you may see someone with more of a lighter skin. But what worries me about him is not only that he is black, but also that he speaks Spanish. And he has an accent that says he speaks Spanish. And we know not only do we have racism issues here, but we also have a lot of immigration intolerance and or immigrant intolerance and refugee intolerance, asylee intolerance, things like that. And I worry that he could be caught up in not only in that mix-up because he's black, but because he speaks Spanish. And because of how some people assume, you know, people are here illegally. How did they get here? Why are they here? They're taking things away from me by being here, that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff worries me as well for you. Not as much for myself because my fiance, of course, is Jamaican, so he doesn't have that accent. I do feel like Jamaicans tend to be a little more cool, you know, like as far as how people perceive people of color. But I do still worry about him just because, like you're saying, they don't have the experience or the training. Like, Jamaica is a country of black people. So there's, of course, things like colorism and classism, you know, where you get judged for being lighter or darker skinned. You know, they defer people in color. I don't know if they do this in Dominican Republic, but in Jamaica, I'm brown. I'm not black. Like, I've referred to myself as black in Jamaica, and they tell me, you're not black, you're brown. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, because my color doesn't reach, I don't know, the level of melanin that makes me black. Which is, you know, interesting. But I am just very worried, his lack of experience, even myself with experience. I don't feel like we are equipped for this. You only have so much power. And I think that's one of the issues is that, and that's why there is fear for so many, is that, like, what do you do? What can you do? We've seen so many scenarios in this in which the argument, as you see on the news, is, you know, I felt threatened for my life, or this person had a weapon, or I thought they had a weapon, or, you know, I was protecting myself, things like that. But in this instance, this is why I think George Floyd's death is, I don't want to say death, sorry, lynching, murder, whatever, those two terms are good with me. This is why it is so bad, is because this man was handcuffed, was not resisting arrest. At no point could he have said, this is all on video, not that I've watched it, don't know if, did you watch?
Nope.
I didn't watch. I've watched a couple other scenarios like this in the past, and this time I was like, I will just read about it. I didn't want to watch it, and I've seen pictures. But, you know, that argument couldn't be used this time because this man was clearly restrained and was clearly not fighting back. Yet somehow his passing between being arrested and this, you know, this foot or this knee in his neck. And so this is just, it's traumatizing. I know a lot of people have chosen not to watch the video. I say, do you. If you want to watch, watch. If you don't want to watch, completely understood. But don't make your inability to watch and traumatize yourself a crutch for being informed. You can still read about it. You can still learn about it. You can still talk about it. It's important to be informed, whether you are a person of color or not. People outside of America are like, this is America. This is not what happens there. Like, this is what happens in our country. This isn't what happens there. So what has he said, or do you know how he's perceiving this?
I think he's perceiving it like all of us in America. I think he's, like, notices and sees, because we did have this, like, I guess we don't talk about it too much because it's frustrating and it's something that we can't necessarily do anything about, but we do need to be aware. So we've had, I guess, a small conversation about it and just talking about all the people that have been basically murdered by police brutality. I think he understands and he gets it, but it's hard to talk about, I guess, when he doesn't have as much experience with it. Like me personally, I've had experience with racism and having to deal with that in different instances in my life. He's had it, but I also think it's more around the Dominican side, so it's not necessarily like the racism that I've had, if that makes sense, or the kind of I guess problems that I have had. So it's hard to have a conversation with it, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh my Lord. Okay. So I mentioned this a lot. I'm in a group, you know, where all of us have, you know, are in relationships of people from international long distance. And a lot of it's mainly women, but there are a few men of that group, but a lot of the women have talked about like training their spouses almost. Like I think about that when I'm thinking about, like, if you don't know, I have a son that's a year old, and he is black, obviously. And thinking about, like, I think about, like, how do I grow him and prepare him? Like, I've watched that movie, The Hate U Give. It was absolutely epic, and if you haven't seen it, you need to watch it. And you know that they show, I think the opening scene is that training of the children and how to deal with police. And then the movie talks about, you know, the effectiveness of that training and the ineffectiveness of that training. Or if you haven't seen American Son, I don't know if that's still on Netflix. Have you watched that one?
Yeah, we watched it together.
Oh, yeah, we did. I know I talked to some other people about watching it, and they were like, it's boring. Watch the movie. The relevance of the story in that movie is not boring. The setup is one-dimensional. Yes, it's, you know, a different kind of movie, but the message in that is necessary. Please watch that movie. But how do you train them? Can we train them? Like, what can I do in my power to try to make sure that when they come stateside, well, for you, if mine comes stateside, like, have you talked about that? Like, what to do, what not to do? Has he talked about hearing or knowing what to do, what not to do? Or
I'm pretty sure he knows what to not do and what to do. I think I do have the benefit of having him already been here. But I think it's also just hard because that's not necessarily something he grew up with, if that makes sense. So it's something that he would have to train himself to do. But I think he does. Well, he has the, not common sense, but he has the information, and he knows what he should and shouldn't do. But it also is hard because you can do what you shouldn't do, and it
can mean not a thing.
So training, per se, I'm going to say I'm not going to attempt to train him just because I don't really know if there is anything that, if somebody want to do it, they're going to do it. Regardless of if we comply or anything, if they want to do it, they're going to do it. It's not really anything that we can stop at this point. I'm praying that there is a way for this to stop, but I generally don't think it's going to be necessarily anything that we're doing on our part to stop that. So I don't really know if I see a reason to train him, if that makes sense. I just feel like we're humans and we know how to act. Therefore, they should know how to act. I don't really understand why I need to be trained or he needs to be trained to, like a dog or anything. Like, we're human beings. There's no reason for it.
Yeah,
like,
just to know how to deal with people.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense to me. So
now, a little bit more about us. Well, there's a video that's supposed to come out before this video. That's not, so you won't have this information. So I'll tell you now. I am considering moving to Jamaica versus him coming here. That is for a plethora of reasons. Just what I'm looking for in life, I haven't found and don't feel can be offered to me here in the U.S. And then this is just another thing that makes me, you know, not care to bring him here or raise my son here. And that very well may change, because I can say that, you know, these things happen and there are terrible things that happen, but I can also acknowledge that there are advantages to being here and there's good that happens here as well. It's just terrifying to make that toss up and say, am I going to be one of the individuals that experiences this, like, these terrible heinous crimes, or am I going to be one of the blessed ones that makes it through life and watches myself and the people of color, especially the men of color that I love, make it as well? That's a scary gamble, and I'm upset that that's a gamble I have to make at all. This is a real issue. This is a real scary thing, and I worry about us, and I worry about the people that we're about to get with and what this means for them, and the lack of control that I have in this area to protect my family. Yeah. Especially when it comes to, like, you know, it's different. Like a home invasion, you know, there are rules and laws here in America where if someone breaks into your home, you have permission to protect your family. What do I do when I am out in the streets and someone that is supposed to protect me is the one hurting? What do I do? I don't know. I have no idea. Nope. So here we are trying to, like, navigate all of this and figure this out and keep those that we care about and love, like, in mind, but still try to be together, but not be selfish about it.
Hard stuff.
This is really, really trying. This is really trying. And I have a hard time with my fiance. I don't think he's experienced much of this, honestly. And we haven't had a great amount of conversations about it. I feel like he's expressed some sympathy, but I don't think he gets it. I don't think he gets it. And I almost feel like he would have to be here to get it, but I don't want him to be in that situation to get it. I'd prefer if his life could be ignorantly blissful in regards to this subject.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I just encourage people to be vigilant and active and actively anti-racist. I have had some interactions at this point with people that I have never perceived to be racist. I don't know them to be racist. But I will tell you that in response, in some of the things that I've seen people do or say, you may not be racist, but what you are doing or have said is racist. Or if you don't even want to perceive it as racist, just know it doesn't support me. And that's a problem. Because in these sort of scenarios, what we should be looking to do with one another is support or be quiet. Because you have every right to believe in your mind that this wasn't a murder, this wasn't a lynching, the cops have the right to do their job, they need to do this and that. You have every right to believe that. I don't have to agree with you and you don't have to agree with me. But you don't necessarily need to come tell me that, just as I don't feel the need to come tell you such a thing. So I say my advice is support or be quiet. And if you're going to support, make sure you're doing it properly. Ask, educate yourself. There are so many resources out there for you to figure out what you can do, how you can help. The protests and things that are going on, that is a whole other topic. And whether you agree with protesting or not, which is, sort of a sketchy topic, especially considering the fact that we're still dealing with COVID-19, you don't have to leave your house to support. You can call your representatives. There are a zillion numbers online to text. You can text a number to sign a petition. Like, it's that simple. It doesn't take a whole lot. You can be diligent. You can vote. You can, I don't know if you know, but we can write laws. They don't always get passed, but you can suggest a law, write it up, submit it, and potentially make it legislation. You have options. So let's make sure that we're all doing our part. And people say, don't just post about it. But that is a big place where awareness starts. Some people live in a hole and they don't know what's going on. So hopefully posting isn't all you're doing, but it is something. And even if not, even for my benefit, it makes me feel good to scroll through my timeline and see that you posted something, or watch your story and see that you acknowledged and posted something that's going on in support of what is happening. That means something. And so don't discredit something so small as that, but also don't limit yourself to something so small as that. All right. Anything else?
That's it.
That's all I've got. I thought about putting my son in here for emphasis, and I decided not to. Just let him run around and be free. So that is us. Thank you for watching this deep,
intense,
heavy episode of 90 Day Sisters. I realized I picked up my son's stress ball. Yeah, see? Because this is just, it's a lot. It is a lot. And we have the nerve to think about expanding. Expanding. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like hunting season, and we're like, hey, bring on the prey. Like, goodness gracious.
It's fine. I will just stay in my house at this point. So.
Man, that's like almost what you want to do. All right, okay. I'm done talking.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Go ahead. End it up.
So, thanks for watching this special edition of 90 Day Sisters, dealing with all this mess. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. We want to have interaction, so comment just to be respectful. Remember that, okay?
Respectful or
whichever one you choose is fine with us. So, yes. But yeah, we do want to have conversations. So, share it. This should be something that's shared. Maybe this is something that people don't think about necessarily as much. So, share, comment,
like,
subscribe. Yep.
Turn on post notifications.
Yes.
And if you are in this scenario, the specific scenario in which you have someone coming from another culture, another country, and are worried about this aspect of the relationship as far as reuniting in the States, or even another aspect, and you have insight or tips, bring it on.
We're ready for
we could use them.
Yup.
All right. Thank you, guys. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.